Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and good people to join this session about OSPOs and the OSPO Alliance, especially. And so we will present how to build a successful OSPO with the help of the Good Governance Initiative Handbook, which is a project from the OSPO Alliance. So, okay. Yeah, that works. My name is Boris Baldassari. I'm a contributor to the OSPO Alliance. I'm also the chairman of the OSPO Alliance. We have elections every year, so I'm the current chairman. And I'm also an open source consultant at the Eclipse Foundation. And if you want to contact me for any question, comment, or whatsoever, please do so. This is my email address. And so before we start, maybe a few words about what an OSPO is. Do you know what an OSPO is? Please raise the hand if you know what an OSPO is. That's a good part. An OSPO is the open source program office. So that's a team or a person within an organization that's in charge of raising awareness, promoting, and generally securing open source usage within the organization. So they act as a single point of contact for any question related to open source usage, contribution within the organizations. May it be about IP, licensing, HR contract, and so on. And it's a big trend. So during the last years, we've seen a lot of big organizations, public administrations, and so on, create an OSPO to help them manage properly open source in the organization. And the point is, many of these people are not really used to open source, and they don't have a clue about how to start and how to build their roadmap and how to build their OSPO and make it a success. So that's why we created the OSPO Alliance. And when I say we, it's a set of 4 European-based non-profits organizations that created 3 years ago the OSPO Alliance. It's basically a community and a set of guidelines to help organizations build their own, so define and build their OSPO, and generally speaking, apply best practices for open source management within the organization. The OSPO Alliance is an informal initiative, and one of our main project actually is the Good Governance Initiative Handbook. And it's a proven, actionable framework and set of guidelines, best practices to define and build an OSPO. So we started in 2021 publishing the first version of this handbook. At that time, there were only 4 European-based non-profit organizations. And so the goal was generally, the aim was to develop an approach for excellence in open source software management. Love that word, excellence in open source software management. So it's not only about using correctly open source, it's also about applying best practices, contributing back, making it something that is really at the heart of your strategy for the organization, using it for your reputation and so on. So that's really a large aim. And so it's not really only about how I should choose my open source components. It's really broad. We are an informal group, and we are governed by open source principles. Actually, we are an open source project, really. So we are open, transparent, collaborative, meritocratic. Everybody is welcome. We respect members' privacy. So when you enter the OSPO Alliance, we do not collect any private details. You get no spamming. Your information does not end in a marketing database and so on, I swear. And we provide a community, a safe place for people to discuss OSPO thing, ask stupid questions, get advice from experienced people. We also provide monthly webinars, which are called the OSPO On-Ramp series. It's every 3rd Friday of the month, and you just connect someone from the initiative, present their experience with their OSPO and state their good practices, what worked, what did not work so well. And we have here a few people and someone who attended or presented something that was a big success, by the way. You can still watch all the presentations that we did, so it's a place where you can really learn a lot. And after that, we have a long session of 45 minutes under the Chatham House rules to ask stupid questions and discuss about the things that worked and the things that didn't work. And of course, we developed the Good Governance Initiative Handbook and all the associated resources. At the beginning, there were only 4 non-profit organizations, and there a bunch of people got interested and became a member and supporters of the Alliance. We define ourselves as a vendor-neutral space. Participation is open to all, so even if we are European-based, we welcome just about anybody. Everybody is welcome. Low barrier, so there is no fee, no commitment. You just have to sign a statement of support saying that you generally agree with the goals of the Alliance, which are mainly about promoting open source, actually. And we have in our members organizations of all sizes and shapes, from SMEs to large companies, academics, public administrations, and so on. Oh, that really doesn't work, eh? What's new? So every year we publish a new version of the handbook. We add more resources, and so this year, this week actually, we published the version 1.2 of our handbook. And as we see more people joining, so we see a lot of interest and people joining us and discussing with us about our work, because as with most open source projects, we have no idea about the extent of our dissemination. We do not track our users, so we are just not sure about how much people read it and use it. But more and more, we have people coming to us and saying, well, actually, I read your handbook. It's really useful. I used it to develop my roadmap and actually implement the OSPO in my organization. And so we realized that we kind of have an impact in Europe at least, and I mean in other parts of the world as well. So this year we had a focus on getting more mature. So we formalized and wrote down our governance model. We described our processes, and generally speaking, prepared ourselves for a bright future, because we want to bring further this support for anything OSPO within Europe and worldwide. We also created a set of task forces to work on specific topics and not focus only on the handbook. So we now have a partner hub to help people find reliable and trusted GGI consultants who provide some consultancy and trainings. We worked on our tooling, so we have a task force working on adding metrics to the handbook, so to help you know, measure the progress on your deployment and the success of the deployment of your OSPO within your organization. We also have a bunch of translations of the handbook. So the handbook is still written in English, but especially for public administration, it's quite important to have the handbook available in your language. So now we have something like 5 translations on top of the English one, and more coming. So that was kind of a busy year. For a quick introduction to the handbook, so basically it's a method and a process, a bunch of guidelines to help you so define your roadmap and build your OSPO. So these are things that you want to consider when you're talking about managing open source within your company. So that goes from software composition analysis to just realize that you have a lot of open source in your critical processes, development best practices that come from the open source world, training, HR contract, executives education, And all these activities are grouped into goals, which kind of describe the step of maturity toward the open source excellence. And you will start from the usage goal, where you just realize how much you rely on open source in all of your critical processes. Then you come to a space where you trust open source, so it's not a stranger anymore to the organization. And then it becomes kind of a cultural thing, so it's normal and okay to think about open source when you think about new processes and so on. And when you start contributing back to open source, you should want to engage with the project that you rely on to make sure that they're still there tomorrow, engage with the community at large, with the foundations, with the projects, up to the stage where open source has become a strategic asset for the organization. So that means for the reputation benefits, for innovation, and making it really something that is core of your communication and globally strategy at the organization level. Each activity is built on this structure. So for each activity, you have a description of what the activity does. So you have to identify the open source that you have, then start managing software vulnerabilities, look at the dependencies, the open source dependencies that you have, and so on and so on. Manage key indicators, have a dashboard to monitor the progress of your OSPO and open source best practices and so on. You also have an opportunity assessment, which helps you identify what this activity will bring to your issues, your current problems, and what it would be a good idea to do this activity right now. Progress assessment to measure the progress and the success of this activity, if you really completed it, or if you still can make some progress and to actually complete the activity. You have a bunch of recommendations coming from experienced people, so things like, so you need to, as an example, manage software dependencies, but you might want to help your organization and teams with that, propose an easy way for them to just have a pipeline that come to their CI/CD process, provide templates, contact the legal team, because in that activity they might have some useful information. We provide also a set of tools and resources to help you get more information about the scope of this activity, and a set of next activities that you might want to consider after finishing this one. As an example, if you have just identified the open source that you're using, maybe you want to start monitoring the vulnerabilities in these components and look at the software dependencies and so on. One thing is, quite important thing is that the handbook has been built for just about any type of organization, so public administrations, academic, and so on. So it might be that the activity is not exactly fit for your context. What we recommend is to start from the activity and build a scorecard, which is kind of the local adaptation of this activity to your specific context. As an example, so you want to manage key indicators. In your context, that would be using, say, this type of dashboards that we already use, and you might want to build, to do something with this team, because they know a lot about processes, monitoring, dashboards, and so on, so they have a lot of information. So the scorecard will be kind of a reflection of the activity, tailored to your specific context and what you should do with your own objectives in your context with your resources, skills, teams, and so on. We also propose a deployment feature, so it's basically a GitLab project that you clone to your own GitLab instance or whatever GitLab instance. And that will automatically create all the activities as issues, which is very handy because then you can start organizing them in sprints. So if you want to manage that in an agile way, you will select a few activities, complete them, then have another sprint with different activities. So you have a board that is automatically created. So you have a visualization of all the activities. You start creating the scorecard from there. So it's really easy to manage your deployment with that. And we also automatically generate with GitLab pages a website that is the exact reflection of where you are on your own deployment. So if you are working on a set of activities, it will display these activities, show some information, graphics about your progress on the overall program. And so that's not only useful for you as a OSPO manager to know where you are, but it also helps a lot to communicate with your team, stakeholders, and so on. Among the changes that we introduced in this week's new release, the V1.2, so a lot of global updates on the activities. We improved them following some feedback from the field. We enriched and updated references, so it's never obsolete. We have a new section about Innersource, because for many organizations actually want to or already use Innersource, so how you can use Innersource as a middle step to build your open source management. We also introduced relationships, as I presented before. So when you have an activity and you just completed that activity, there are a few activities that make sense to consider after this one. We are in the process of updating the deployment feature that will come in the next weeks. So to embed all the new activities with an updated dashboard and so on. And of course, you can get the V1, the handbook 1.2 on our website. No registration, you just go there, download the PDF file, you can browse the HTML file online, and it's of course freely available to all. We have, so the thing is, the handbook was written in English, and we do not speak many languages among the core maintainers of the group. So we use Weblate, which is an open source project with a platform that open source projects can use. So we just did put our files on Weblate, and suddenly there were people coming from the crowd, and most of them we didn't even know, who started translating that into many different languages, mostly European. So now we have official translations in German, French, Portuguese, Dutch, Italian. Soon we'll have the Spanish one. And so they are all available on the website, of course. And you can contribute. Please come and help us. These are the languages already available today. There is even some simplified Chinese translation ongoing. And if you want to add your own language because you want to deploy that at a public administration or whatsoever, it's really easy to just add a language, start translating, and then we can just publish the official translation from there. And so we had quite a lot of success on this, and that was a surprise to us, that crowdsourcing works. And it shows the interest of people, so that's really great. Now, we have done a lot since 3 years. We have done a lot this year. What we want to do, so first thing is we see we have some success, and we're happy with that. People come to us saying, that really helped me, so thank you very much for that work. We want to do that work, to continue that work, continue to provide that support for the organizations that want to better manage open source. So we will continue for the immediate roadmap and the coming year. We will continue improving and enriching the handbook with more and better content, maybe more activities. We get more and more feedback as well. We will update translations to V1.2, since the V1.2 just got out. The translations still reflect the 1.1. We will, of course, work on the deployment feature, make it available in different languages. Since we have the translations, we will have a way to actually deploy that in your specific language. And we are looking at implementing a GitHub deployment. So right now that works only on GitLab, but you can deploy it on any GitLab. And we aim to work on GitHub. So same principle, so you will have a GitHub repository that you can just clone and do the same thing, so deploy the GGI for your organization, either on github.com or on your own GitHub instance. And the last but not least objective for this year is to nurture the community, develop the community, grow our ecosystem, start working with other initiatives in Europe and worldwide to just foster this support for organizations to build their OSPO. Like any open source project, we would love to have more contributions. As I said, we're really an open source project, so you come, you start contributing. After some time, when you have shown that you know what you're talking about and you provide good contributions, you get more privileges, you get into the maintainer list, which means that you can really make an impact. So we really much welcome that. First thing, of course, is to get to know us. So you can go to OSPO-alliance.org. You can have a look at the handbook. We have, of course, contributing guidelines. Everything happens in the open. So we have a GitLab instance. You go there, and you can see everything we do with what we are currently developing and so on. And we have two mailing lists. So one of them is the community at large, where you can ask questions about, I want to replace that proprietary software by an open source one. Do you have suggestions? And there are a lot of very experienced people on this mailing list who are very happy to help. So you can join the community on this mailing list, ospo.zone@eclipse.org. And there is a specific mailing list for the work happening on the Good Governance Initiative Handbook. So you can subscribe on both. Both are absolutely open, and it's ossgovernance@ow2.org. And that's all, folks. So thank you for listening. You can go to this is the QR code for our website, and I intentionally left some minutes so we can have questions and an exchange about your vision on that, your OSPO. Do you have an OSPO? What you think about it? So thank you. Yes, please.
Rightmost side, there was a set of activities regarding strategic things to work on.
That one? Yeah. Yeah. We can look at the activities. These are the activities for the strategic goal. And so one example is educate your C-level executives, because they need to know what they're talking about when they go to big meetings and so on, and they will be the people who have an influence over the whole organization. So you have to educate them about open source, contributing back and so on. Another example is using it for innovation. A lot of innovation is happening in open source, so how you can reuse the patterns in open source to actually impulse innovation at home and so on. Does that answer the question?
Formally, it
What would...
What I see in our organization is that people tend to, I guess, have an understanding of what open source is these days, which is good, which is also an outcome of these activities. But my feeling is that many of the management people actually do not really understand how to deploy open source to reach a particular goal, or that it is a means to an end and not an end in itself. And that's more concerned, I guess, with a business model that they need to create or develop. And it is certainly not open source itself. That's not a business model that we want. But trying to educate the organization that in order to establish a new innovative business model, open source could be a strategic tool to get there or to enable this. I think that is what I'm thinking a lot about these days, and I wonder how we can actually do that, or if there are any useful resources to make
So actually, to make it clear, once you get there, usually you've gone through all the activities before. So there has been a lot of work done on diffusing open source awareness within the organization and so on. So at that point, you already have established, identified the skills, resources that you have. You already have processes to use and open source correctly, and with some risk management and contributing back, engaging with the ecosystem. So the whole organization globally has a good understanding of open source. Really, the last part about strategy is about, it's rather a bottom-up approach, to be clear. So most of the organization at this point already is aware about what open source is and how to manage that properly. The ultimate goal is really to have the latest layer up there to complete the cycle and actually complete the transition, so to speak. They are the last part of the fort to actually convince, and it will be easy at that time because all of the organization is already aware of what's happening.
The problem that I see, at least in our organization, is that we are pretty close to that, and everybody is happy to use open source to contribute to open source. People are enthusiastic about becoming a committer, so everybody loves open source. But then, management asks, how do we make money?
Oh, so, yeah, there was someone here before, please.
So first of all, thank you, and it's really great to see how great this can be used. I just wanted to challenge this idea that in all cases you would have to go through this in order.
No.
Just to that point, so I work particularly with OSPOs in, for example, educational institutions or universities, and you cannot assume that even if some people have gone through this journey, that everyone will have gone through this journey. So there is always a need perhaps to actually talk about the goals that one might pursue with open source, whether that be a business model, whether you want competitive advantage, whether you want spread, market domination, whatever you might want your goal to be. That conversation can actually happen before an organization or individuals within that organization buy into the journey. So sometimes you need that, you need them to understand the goal in order for an appropriate plan to be put in place, but be resourced from a long-term perspective. So I just wanted to kind of say, I would see value in having these strategic goal activities, not necessarily being the end of the journey, but perhaps running in parallel with some of the other stuff that's going on. Because certain parts of the organization will move at different speeds. So I would have imagined that for all of these things, you have certain parts of the organization moving faster than others. Some people may already be doing open source. Some people may not know what it is. You want to be doing things in parallel in some organizations.
Right. So maybe I should have stressed out the fact that it's only a set of cards that you can use. And so the OSPO manager or the team in charge of the OSPO has to build the vision on top of that, using that. And I think that's partly answer Kai's question too. So at the beginning of the journey, the first thing you do is you look at all the activities, and some of the activities, depending on your own goals, are not fit. So you just squeeze them, or maybe you might get back to them later on. But the idea is to really have a set of cards to start building your roadmap and so on. And it's entirely up to you. If you want to start with and actually, the feedback I had was that in some situations there was some knowledge at the C-level, so you might want to start with some of this. It's really up to you. Yeah. Before going to you, Wolfgang, to finish on Kai's question. So if that touches your business model, I think it's kind of out of scope of this. And if I understand you correctly, I think you would be in a sixth goal. So where you cannot get, if you have not educated your C-level, which seems to be the case already, and so on. So once you have passed that, you are probably more than ever ready to actually work on your business model. But to be honest, that's not what we had in mind when we built the GGI handbook. Changing a business model is far too much to just be generic, as an example. So I think it's out of scope of that. I would still recommend to go through the last steps of the last activities, because that would definitely help with that. But yeah, I don't think we actually have that part. Wolfgang, before, please.
Just one quick question. I mean, could we look at one of these cards? Just, random, whichever. I just want to see what they look like in the description.
Oops.
Okay. And then, so description, what it is, and assessment. Okay.
You're welcome. Please.
I have a very easy question, but it's phrased in a very mean way.
Okay.
You go back and you look at the 6 levels. What's kind of implied to me, and I think I understood very wrong, is that once all those levels are done, there's nothing else that the OSPO Alliance can do. And I'm sure that the answer is no, and this is what we do. But I didn't pick that up.
Well, right now, that's the end of the journey for us. And honestly, if you got to that, thanks to the GGI handbook, check mark for us.
If we got that way by falling down the hill, or by coincidence, like, shouldn't we be leading and have a future vision too? end of the day, it's all about survivability, about profit and everything, and how can we do it with open source, which leads back to open source business plans.
Sure, I mean, there are resources available for that, there are lists, descriptions, but this is, you can preach that to your managers, but most people lack the inspiration or the creativity to actually get there or to transform or to transpose what they're currently doing into a world where they would deploy such a. That's the hard part. That's the hard part. And I was just wondering, since you have been giving, or these cards are based on experience, people having done that, and this having been successfully applied, I had hoped for you would also have a good template of practice for doing that.
No, I think it would be great to go further than that, actually. The thing is, so to what point can it be generic? I'm not sure. And well, if you ask me, I would say if you have done all of this, and getting back to your example, maybe you have done some of this and some of this up there. But maybe you want to have a look at the other activities, so you really have a complete picture. And honestly, if you've done all of them, I don't think that you need a handbook or guidance about what comes next. Maybe what you want to do is come to the community and have a discussion with others about your specific case, getting experience. Not sure that any generic guidance can really help with that, but we also have the community, and I'm quite sure that this question will get a lot of answers, and that will be a long thread. So.
That's the thing, I would say that, like, just my very naive interpretation is that there should be a what's next here, because if not, we're done, you know?
I think we can take that into consideration for the V1.3, and I think you can come. You're welcome.
I'll just say from my point of view, I think when they decided to really go for open source, this is a very good starting point because we have already a central department that take this kind of stuff standard, they create a process, and then we have a manager that talks about they are very happy to follow the thing. And this is a very good starting point that can remove a lot of worries and scary. Oh, I have to start open source and people talk. No, you have already a rough plan. This I think is very good, at least for my organization, is a very good starting point.
Thank you. So I think we're done. Thank you very much for your attention and the discussion after that.